95% white. So, you can imagine the immense cultural shock I experienced when I went to a university that was only 84% white. In order to deal with this social shock, I did the only logical thing. I joined a sorority. So, I consider myself a bit of an expert when it comes to us white people. To prove, I'm going to shotgun this can of LaCroix. Just joking. I don't want to pay for dry cleaning fees. There's a lot of things white people love. Those family stickers on the backs of minivans, giant tubs of mayonnaise from Costco. Oh, and feeling like the world is somehow slighted against us. That's right. You can't talk about white people without talking about the myth of reverse racism. Because according to a 2016 Public Religion Research Institute poll, 57% of white people believe that we face more discrimination than people of color. Was it opposite day that took that poll? Did Jeff Sessions take that poll 87 times? I don't know. All we know is that this is no longer an isolated clan in Alabama. This is a growing group of a majority of people that wield more economic and social power than any other. And while the idea of reverse racism isn't new, it's become disturbingly relevant in the era of Trump. Kind of like Ann Coulter. So today, let's debunk the myth of reverse racism by first, understanding why reverse racism can't exist. Second, causes that cause belief in reverse racism. And finally, some solutions to what white people are calling, it's like so racist, there's no BET for white people. It's called HGTV. Let's get one major roadblock out of the way. There's no such thing as reverse racism. Okay, good. No one stood up and screamed, "The South will rise again" or something, so I can assume we're all on equal footing. In his 2010 article, The Pedagogy of the Meaning of Racism, Professor Carl White Jr. explains that there are two main components to racism: prejudice and power. First, prejudice is the innate hate or bias of something or another. And let's make one thing perfectly clear. People, regardless of race, can be hateful, discriminatory, biased, xenophobic. They just can't be racist. I mean, my God, have you seen Ben Carson? And white people have been pretty prejudiced against people of color for a really long time. Do I need a source on that? Or are we good? Okay. Second, power. Power is when leveraged at the institutional level. Institutions include the government, the workforce, communities, and the education system. Because people of color don't wield a majority stake of power within these institutions, they can't enact any prejudices that they may have. White people, however, do. And thus, these institutions will never actively oppress white people. There will never be voter ID laws in predominantly white neighborhoods. Nor will you ever be rejected from a job for having a name that sounds too white. Though, admittedly, my name is a strong candidate. Here's the thing too about some white people. When you tell us reverse racism doesn't exist, we will get so mad. We want to be oppressed so bad. You ever hear this? When the Irish came over, they were heavily discriminated against. At least the Irish got to choose if they wanted to come over. Like the number of spices white people know how to use, there are two main components to believing in reverse racism: zero-sum view and white victimhood. First, zero-sum view is the notion that as people of color gain advancements and rights, then by some law or another, those rights and advancements must be being taken away from someone else. Just to give you a little bit of insight, Representative Michelle Bachmann thinks that this is, true. So, it's an A+ idea. Zero-sum view is dangerous because it allows white people, to believe that we are having something taken off of us, which leads us into our second point, white victimhood. White victimhood is the not-so-new notion that as a result of a racially divided America, white people face the brunt of inequality, that we are ultimately the victims of it all. And when I say not so new, I mean white people have been doing this for hundreds of years. Keeps coming back around, like bootcut jeans. White victimhood is dangerous too because it allows white people to deny our own privilege, to believe that we are the ultimate victims and don't benefit from any of these systems. And when privilege is so violently denied, then systems that grant privilege can never be fully eradicated nor fixed. Okay, here's like the super fun part of the speech where you have these handouts, right? And I'm gonna put these handouts on the desk, and they're gonna sit here all weekend. And then the students are gonna come back on Monday and they're gonna be like, what the fresh hell is this? Solutions include begging Obama to deport white people. And yeah, I know what president I said. Just joking. How are you gonna deport Becky when she is 24.9998 German, 16.999 repeating Italian, and 0.01234567 Native American? Solutions are much more complicated than a handout. These is going to take human-to-human interaction, calling behavior out when we see it. And human-to-human interaction can use these two main solutions: explanation and validation. First, explaining to some white people that reverse racism isn't real is a serious shock to some of us. Like, more shocking than when Lance Bass came out. Would you believe I've gotten called out for having that reference be too old? I'm sorry, just no one like nostalgia anymore? I've compiled a short list of terms used when talking about race and their updated 2017 societal connotations. A lot of white people genuinely don't realize that these words have changed meaning. And sometimes it's as simple as telling them the difference between discrimination and racism. Second, while it's hard to have sympathy for the race that collectively murdered the word lit, we have to validate people's problems. We have to actually ask why someone would feel so slighted as to turn to the term reverse racism. When we get to the real root of the problem, which, spoiler alert, isn't reverse racism, then we can actually look at real problems, such as xenophobia, homophobia, or sexism. There are some mysteries of white culture we may never understand. Like, who told us it was okay to wear socks with sandals? Why are we always dying in hot air balloon accidents? And why do we keep kissing our dogs on the mouth? That is disgusting. There's so many germs there, people. Hopefully one myth that's been debunked today is the myth of reverse racism, because its causes of zero-sum view and white victimhood need to slowly but surely be eradicated through us making a conscious effort to explain and validate people. If it made you uncomfortable that a white person was giving this speech, consider white people literally made this problem up. And unfortunately, it has serious consequences for people of color. So, let's find white people a new myth to obsess over, like Bigfoot or Donald Trump's tax returns.